Morning guys, today I'm going to show you how to file work with silver liners. So you're going to need your magic hat of infinite patience. When you're working on like sterling silver or softer, thinner metals like this, little tip, when you're using a round file, I'm sure most of you guys probably experienced this, if you just cut straight into your piece, your file's eventually going to bind. You will bend your work. And if you've experienced that before, you'll know that you're always going to end up with a ripple in there unless you surface it. So to save yourself some work, you want to move your file side to side as well as your downward cut. That'll keep you from binding your file and bending your piece. When you're cutting your silver pieces and stuff like this, you want to make sure that your work piece is close to the edge of your work surface. That'll prevent bending of your piece here. And you want to start at the end here. Keep as much mass down here as you possibly can until you're finished with this. Otherwise, there's a possibility that it'll bend if you start and cut down here and work your way up. Okay, I do these separate. I do these one at a time. I usually do the right side. And after I get that one done, we'll cut the other one after I've traced out the pattern onto my other work piece. And then, after I get that one cut, I put them together like this, and then I work them together so they end up being exactly the same. There's no discrepancy in the shapes. Okay, as you can see here, we've got all our pieces, and I'm going to show you guys something. This is what works for me. If you've ever had to deal with a misaligned pin and a broken scale, when you go to put together for the final time or whatever, you know, this is what I do. I drill all my pieces individually. I start with the right side on here, drill my hole, clamp the other side on there, drill that hole. The same goes with the scales. I drill those after that, one at a time. This ensures that all of your holes are perfectly lined up. I use old equipment, so I kind of have a necessity for that. After I have my liners almost to their final finish, what I do is I put a couple of temporary pins in those, keep those where they need to be. And then, what I do, make sure everything stays aligned and I don't get anything off in the final product. Take a little bit of super glue if I can get it open. Make sure everything is still in line. And then take just the slightest little drop of super glue and put it in this hole right here. And another one right back here. And try to make sure you don't glue yourself to your piece. That ensures that everything is perfectly aligned when that glue dries. And then I can work it without the pins. Those get in the way in case you haven't had that experience. Another reason to also cut back and forth side to side when you're cutting the insides of your radius here, in fact, that gives you a little more space to add your sandpaper in there. If you don't cut that out just a little wide, then you're going to fight with your paper and it'll get jammed and it'll get tore up and you'll have to replace your paper time and again. That's another reason for that. Here to start our file work on the silver liners. I cut these notches, these round notches, with an 1/8 inch file. These are marked out at 3/16. And now for the final meticulous part. Put on your hat of infinite patience for this, because you'll need it. I take my scribe and I individually cut these notches for the ivy here by hand. It's about the only way to really do it. I've tried other methods, but scribe just seems to work the best. When I did this on the quill knife, it took me about 2.5 days to work the silver and copper liners. When you're cutting the fine veins in this ivy on the liners here, you want to make sure you start at your very edge with your cut, take out a chip, and then work your cut back as you go and work it a little deeper. That'll help you to get a wider cut along the face of your liner here, and toward the inside it'll get finer as you go because you just cut it deeper. After you make your first pass with your cuts here, you want to take like some 400 grit sandpaper and just lightly touch your edge there. That'll drop a little bit of the metal dust down into your cuts. That'll smooth things out, get rid of the burrs, and that'll show you everywhere you need to go back and hit. It will show you all the imperfections. If you attempt to cut these finer veins in this ivy with a scribe, like I'm doing here, you want to make sure that your scribe is at about 15 degrees with the surface of your scale, or your liner here. If you go any steeper than that, it's going to want to dig deep, and you don't want to do that. You'll end up with a gouge in your cut there. It won't be real smooth. But if you keep this at about 15 degrees, almost straight up and down, and get a nice smooth cut, you can work your cut back. To explain this a little more in depth here, when you're cutting these, if you use your scribe, you're not actually trying to cut your fine detail. You're not digging it out like you think you might. You're just basically scratching it out. Just a little bit at a time. As you probably notice, most of what I do on a fine scale, I'm always using both hands, and a lot of that is I'm using my thumb as a guide for my scribe on this part, and that's all for stability. If you don't have stability and control in what you're doing, you're gonna screw it up. That's just a given. So I can't express stability enough. One thing I want to point out about using a scribe and the fact that it's rounded like this is when you're doing these fine details for ivy, as you make your cut right along the edge and you scratch that out, if you drag that just a little bit down through your cut on the side there, that will actually round off that corner and give you a nice sharp thorn appearance to it. And that's with silver anyway, because it's so soft that just kind of deforms that edge there. Something to keep in mind. Something I want to point out here when you're cutting your notches here with your round file and whatnot, you want to make sure you change your angle every time you change your cut here like this. If you don't match the angle of your surface here, your cuts will end up off, and you'll have to correct that one way or another, even if that means going back and redoing everything you've already done. After you get the fine detail in your ivy cut, you want to go back and you want to break that lead corner on your ivy. Just to give it a more organic look and feel. It doesn't look quite so mechanical that way. Here is your fine cut, and then here is your lead corner. Break that corner and round it off just ever so slightly. When you do that, take your file, your 1/8 inch round file, set your cut, and then just take off a little of that corner. You can change the angle of your cut just a little bit. That'll help you to get a smoother cut in there. and that'll also help to prevent edge slip. After you've got all your fine cuts made here, you want to go back and surface these edges. Take off those burrs on the edge, otherwise you'll get a misfit between your pieces and you'll have a gap there. And me being the stickler that I am, try not to use any more epoxy than I absolutely have to. A lot of my knives are made without the use of any kind of adhesives. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you got any questions, let me know. Happy to answer any questions you got. If there's anything you don't see in the videos that you might like to see in future videos, be sure and let me know and I'll do my best to cover it the best I can. Thanks guys. Have a good one. Use your tools, gentlemen. Build something beautiful.